and the Senator from Arizona have been talking about, and that is the tax increases, the spending.
And,
yes, sir. I'd be happy to.
You know, over the weekend, people watch football games. I obviously was pleased to see my alma mater prevail over those great cadets at West Point, and we have a tendency to divert our attention, even seeing for a change the Redskins even winning a football game. But, you know, what we talked about late last week is vitally important. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid had some devastating comments to make. This is the organization that is tasked to provide us with the best estimates of the consequences of legislation, specifically Medicare and Medicaid. And they said, the CMS, as I will call them now on, this bill would increase health expenditures by an estimated total of $234 billion. CMS, we estimate the total national health expenditures under this bill would increase by an estimated total of $234 billion during calendar years 2010 to 19. It goes on and talks about the devastating effects of this legislation, whether the public option is in or out, whether we expand Medicare or not. And I mean, it's remarkable information that's in this study. And so what we are seeing, this study being ignored, and clearly what's going on the other side, only one senator is throwing proposals back and forth to the CBO till they get something that perhaps looks like it might be saleable. The CMS has already made their judgment on this legislation.
And if I could respond to that, I've only been around here about 3 years, but I passed an incredible scene. I think many of you coming to the floor may have seen it, but there's a huge gaggle of journalists and reporters and folks waiting outside of a room where our colleagues are meeting. And the reason that this bill does not lower costs, you know, I came from a world where if you had a problem, you identified what the problem was, and then you had sort of a central strategy that you built out to try to lower cost, which is, I think, what all of us thought that health care reform would do. Let's lower cost and create greater access for the American people. Well, instead of that, we've had a process where it's been literally like 50 yellow stickums were put up on the wall, and let's figure out how we can get 60 votes. There hasn't been an attempt to actually lower cost. There hasn't been an attempt to try to create a mechanism where Americans can actually choose with transparency the type of plans that work for them. Instead, it's been a game from the very beginning about trying to get 60 votes. And that's why none of the goals, except for one, has been achieved that they set out to achieve. This is going to drive premiums up. It's going to add to the deficit. It's going to make Medicare more insolvent, which is pretty incredible because just when I got here, there was a bipartisan effort to make Medicare more solvent. Instead, we're using money from it to leverage a whole new program, unfunded mandates to states, new taxes, as the senator from South Dakota was talking about. So again, what's happening in this room, the reason I bring up the 50 yellow stickums on the wall, some of which were circled to try to get votes, that's what this has been about from day one. What's happening in the room right now is they're sitting around not dealing with the core of this bill, which is very detrimental to our country, but they're in this room trying to figure out which yellow stickum will get them the 60 votes. And in the process, doing something that's going to be very detrimental to this country.
It could be that the reason they're so anxious to do this before Christmas is that they think Americans will be preoccupied with the holiday season. And somehow they can sneak this unpopular bill through and everybody will be busy opening presents or taking care of their families, and somehow the American people won't notice. But I would suggest to my colleagues, I think this is going to be a vote that will be remembered forever. This is going to be one of those rare votes in the history of the Congress that will be remembered forever.
I wonder, and if I could just also, before my friend from Alabama, I wonder also when we're talking about dropping the expansion of Medicare, as is reported by news reports, I don't know, haven't been informed. Could it possibly have anything to do with the fact that the AMA came out in opposition to it? Could it have anything to do with the fact that the American Hospital Association came out in opposition to it? And of course, with the pharma situation, that's a parliamentary procedure that's awaiting action on the floor speaks for itself, as we talked about before.
Well, I just would agree with the senator completely that this is, as Senator McCain earlier said, it's just baffling. I mean, here we are all these weeks, and now we're being told that the public option is being dropped today, and maybe this expansion of Medicare. Oh, we just changed our mind on this, on a bill that's designed to reorganize 1/7 of the entire American economy. This is how we're being led here. I think, I would say, Senator McConnell, it is historic. I think the American people have rejected this plan. And the numbers don't add up. The money is not there to pay for these schemes, and I think the American people know it. And so I guess I would suggest, my colleague from Tennessee, Senator Alexander, not here, but rather than jamming forward before Christmas, isn't it time to slow down and think this thing through and start over in a step-by-step process that might actually produce some positive change in health care in America?
Absolutely. That is what Senate Republicans have said for quite a while. Let's start over and go step by step to deal with the cost issue. Instead, there's this consuming desire on the other side of the aisle to transform 1/6 of our economy, to have the government take it over, and to make history. And it's been pointed out in this colloquy by many senators, there are many things that have happened in our history that we wish had not occurred, and this is certainly going to be one of them. But I'm optimistic. We just need one Democrat, just one, to stand up and say, Mr. President, I'm sorry. This is not the kind of history that I want to make. And I'd love to listen to you, but I also want to listen to my constituents, and it's very clear where my constituents are. And if I have to choose between you, Mr. President, and my constituents, with all due respect, I'm going to pick my constituents. Just one Democrat needs to stand up and say, I'm willing to listen to the American people, rather than arrogantly assume that all the wisdom resides in Washington, and we've figured this out, and we're going to do it for you, whether you want us to or not.
I want to add to what the Republican leader has said. I really think that there is this push to get this done before Christmas because they think people aren't watching. Well, people are watching. And if you look at the polling is moving. It's moving in the wrong direction for them, but it is clearly moving. More importantly, I've got news for the people on the other side. If they think that this is going to go away after Christmas, they got another thing coming. This is one of the largest issues to be debated in this room for a long, long time. Every senior citizen in America is going to wake up after Christmas and say, now, wait a minute, let me get this straight. Those people in Washington, D.C. cut $500 billion out of Medicare. Don't they care about me? The system's already going broke, and they took $500 billion out of Medicare, benefits that I've paid into all my working life, and transferred it over to start a new program, a new social program that also is not sustainable. What is wrong with those people? This discussion is going to go on, and because of the complexity of this, because of the size of this bill, there are going to be news stories every single day from now until November 2nd of 2010. And my friends, November 2nd of 2010 is coming a lot quicker than what you think. And by the time you get there, you're not going to be able to run from this vote. And the American people are wisely going to respond, and they are going to tell Washington, D.C., through their voting, what they think of what happened in this debacle that is called health care reform, and it is misnamed health care reform. It's higher taxes, higher insurance premiums. It is stealing from the Medicare program, and it is creating a new giant Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. The American people don't want this. Now I'll yield to my good friend from Wyoming.
Well, it's interesting.